The evening in Los Angeles shimmered with neon and drizzle, the kind of night that promised nothing unusual. Lily Johnson held her small secret close, 6 weeks pregnant, and tonight she was ready to share it. She imagined Aaron's reaction, the surprise, the smile, the strong arms around her. But as she crossed a narrow alley, her future shattered. She wasn't alone. Ahead, in the dim light, Aaron stood with 2 men in dark suits. His expression was colder than she had ever seen, voice low, sharp, and final. The stranger facing him fell to his knees, pleading words spilling into the night. Lily froze, hidden in the shadows. Aaron didn't raise his voice. He simply gave an order, a small nod, and everything shifted. The men closed in, the pleading stopped, and silence swallowed the alley. Her stomach knotted. The man she loved, the man she thought was just another ambitious businessman, carried authority that made even hardened men obey without hesitation. There was no hesitation in him, no warmth, only that quiet, absolute control. Lily pressed herself back against the wall, her pulse thundering. For the first time, she realized she didn't know who Aaron truly was. That night, she didn't wait for explanations. She packed a bag with trembling hands, emptied her savings, and drove away into the darkness. Her chest ached with heartbreak, but fear carried her forward. One thought burned through every tear, every mile she put between them: run, before he finds you. The mountains of Colorado rose like silent guardians against the fading autumn sky. Lily's old sedan coughed and wheezed as it rolled into the small town, a place that looked like it had been left behind by time. Hand-painted store signs, a single blinking traffic light, and weathered houses with porches where neighbors still waved at each other. It was the kind of place where secrets could stay buried. She parked in front of a roadside diner with a peeling neon sign that read Wilson's. The smell of coffee and frying bacon hit her the moment she walked in, clinging to her like a blanket against the chill of the night. No one asked her name. No one cared where she came from. To them, she was just another tired woman looking for work. Mrs. Wilson, the owner, was a stout woman with kind eyes and a voice that reminded Lily of home. She looked Lily up and down once, then handed her an apron without ceremony. "You can start tomorrow. Pay isn't much, but it's steady." Lily's voice almost broke as she whispered, "Thank you." Her new apartment was nothing more than 4 walls above an old garage, thin windows that let in the cold, pipes that rattled like bones in the night, and a radiator that groaned louder than it warmed. Still, it was hers. She unpacked her bag slowly, folding clothes into the sagging dresser, placing her toothbrush by the cracked bathroom mirror, and hiding her envelope of cash beneath a loose floorboard. Every night, she traced her stomach with her fingers, whispering to the life inside her, "We're safe here. Just for now." But even in the quiet town, fear followed her. Every sound outside her window made her jolt. Every time the diner's doorbell rang, her heart stopped, expecting to see him, Aaron, standing there, his dark gaze finding her no matter how far she had run. No one asked questions, and she learned quickly not to offer answers. She poured coffee, served pie, and smiled when customers looked too long. Yet when she closed her eyes at night, she could still feel the weight of his presence, hear the steel in his voice, see the shadow he cast across her dreams. And though the mountains rose tall and proud, shielding her with their silence, Lily knew one truth she could never escape: she was only hiding, not free. The weeks passed with a strange, fragile rhythm. The diner became Lily's safe harbor, the hiss of the grill, the clink of coffee cups, Mrs. Wilson humming old country songs while wiping down the counter. To the regulars, Lily was just another waitress with tired eyes and soft manners. But beneath her borrowed smile, she carried the secret of her growing child and the constant hum of fear. She knew she couldn't trust the local clinic. Too many questions, too many papers to fill out. So when she found Dr. Clara Morris, a middle-aged physician who worked out of a modest, weathered office at the edge of town, it felt like a quiet miracle. Dr. Morris didn't ask where Lily came from or why she wanted her visits kept off the record. She simply listened, checked her vitals, and gently pressed the cold stethoscope against Lily's skin to listen for the tiny heartbeat. "You're young, you're healthy," the doctor said with a reassuring smile. "But stress isn't your friend. Whatever you're running from, give yourself some peace, if only for the baby." Lily nodded, though peace was a word that felt impossible. At first, everything seemed manageable. She worked her shifts, came home to her creaking apartment, whispered promises into the darkness for her unborn child. But then, small things began to change. One evening, returning from work, she found 2 bags of groceries left neatly by her door, fresh produce, milk, bread, even prenatal vitamins she hadn't been able to afford. She froze in the hallway, staring at the bags as though they were explosives. The next week, the ancient fridge in her apartment, the one that wheezed and dripped rust-colored water, had been replaced with a new model. The landlord swore he hadn't done it. Then, one morning, she opened her mailbox to find her overdue electric bill stamped paid. Each gift was a relief she hadn't asked for, a blessing wrapped in dread. Her heart told her the truth long before her mind admitted it: someone was watching her. Each creak in the stairwell made her blood run cold. Each unfamiliar car parked on her street sent her peering through the blinds. In the reflection of the diner's windows, she thought she saw shapes that lingered too long before disappearing into the crowd. At night, she would press her palms against her belly and whisper, "He can't know. He can't find us." But her body betrayed her, the child grew, time marched on, and the walls of her secret life thinned. And yet, somewhere deep inside, another thought flickered, terrible, undeniable. What if he already has? The storm came in the early hours, ripping through the Colorado sky with thunder that rattled her windows. Lily woke to a deep, twisting pain in her stomach. Too soon, far too soon. Panic rose in her throat as another contraction bent her forward, forcing her to grip the edge of the kitchen counter just to stay upright. She tried calling Dr. Morris, but the line rang dead. The storm had cut power across town. Rain hammered the roof like 1,000 fists, and when she peered out the window, she saw that the narrow road leading toward the nearest hospital had flooded. The old sedan outside her building wouldn't survive it. Her breaths came shallow and fast. The baby wasn't waiting. She stumbled into the stairwell, clutching her stomach, each step echoing with urgency. When she pushed through the heavy doors into the storm, the world blurred in sheets of rain. She flagged the first headlights that appeared on the road, a battered truck slowing to a stop. The driver, a man with kind eyes and weathered hands, didn't hesitate when he saw her. "Hospital," he shouted over the roar of rain. She nodded, voice breaking. "Please, hurry." The ride blurred into fragments, lightning splitting the sky, the driver's rough voice telling her to breathe, the rattling of the old truck straining against the storm. When they reached the main road, it was washed out, so he veered south, pushing toward the New Mexico border. By the time they arrived at a small county hospital, Lily's strength had drained away. Nurses rushed her through double doors, their voices calm but quick, their hands steady as the storm raged outside. The world dissolved into pain and light, the sharp sting of 4 needles, the metallic scent of antiseptic, the distant thunder that seemed to shake through her very bones. A doctor's voice cut through the haze, "C-section, now." She drifted in and out of consciousness, her body numb but her mind screaming with fear. And then, a cry. A thin, fragile wail that split the silence, and Lily wept as relief crashed over her. "It's a boy," a nurse whispered, placing him against her chest for a fleeting moment. Warm, impossibly small, his breath fluttering against her skin like a miracle. "He's strong." For the first time in months, Lily believed she might be safe. That night, as the storm quieted, the hospital grew hushed. Lily lay weak but peaceful in her bed, her newborn asleep in the bassinet beside her. She had survived. Her son had survived. Then the door opened. Two men in black entered first, tall, broad, their movements sharp and deliberate. Behind them came Aaron. He filled the room the way the storm had filled the sky, with weight, inevitability. His dark coat was soaked from rain, his hair slicked back, his eyes fixed not on her, but on the child. Lily's heart slammed against her ribs. "Aaron," she whispered, her voice barely audible. He stepped closer, his gaze softening as it fell on the sleeping infant. For one terrible, surreal moment, there was no violence in him, only awe. He reached out, brushing the edge of the blanket with fingers that trembled almost imperceptibly. "Our son," he said quietly, his voice a mix of wonder and possession. Lily's throat tightened. Every instinct screamed at her to snatch the baby and run, but her body was too weak, her legs leaden from the surgery. Aaron finally looked at her. His expression was unreadable, not anger, not joy, something in between. "You shouldn't have run, Lily," he said softly. "Did you really think I'd let you disappear?" Her lips parted, but no words came. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The walls, the locks, even her own fragile body conspired against her. The two men moved to either side of the bed, silent shadows sealing her fate. Aaron straightened, his authority filling the room once more. "We're going home." Outside, the storm had ended. But inside, Lily knew, her escape was over. The journey blurred into silence. Lily held her son tightly, the swaddle trembling in her arms as Aaron's men escorted them from the hospital into the waiting SUV. The night smelled of wet earth and asphalt, rain dripped from the eaves as if the storm hadn't fully ended. Aaron sat across from her in the car, his gaze fixed on the child with unnerving intensity. Lily wanted to scream, to demand answers, but her voice was trapped behind the lump in her throat. All she could hear was the baby's breathing, shallow, fragile, real. Every second of silence pressed heavier on her chest. By dawn, they arrived at Nevada. The Miller Ranch revealed itself not as a ranch at all, but an estate sprawling across the desert hills. The gates opened soundlessly, tall iron and steel, flanked by cameras that blinked like watchful eyes. Beyond them, the property stretched wide, manicured gardens, fountains catching the morning light, stables that looked more luxurious than her apartment had ever been. From a distance, it could have been mistaken for paradise. But as the SUV crawled up the driveway, Lily noticed the shadows, men stationed at invisible posts, armed, alert. Security towers disguised as barns. Fences not just for keeping people out, but for keeping them in. The car stopped before a mansion of pale stone, its wide verandas glowing with golden light. The front doors opened before Aaron even touched the handle. A woman waited there. Tall, poised, with silver streaking her dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold centuries of knowledge. Evelyn Miller. Aaron's mother. Lily braced herself for scorn, for icy rejection. Instead, Evelyn stepped forward with a grace that was almost theatrical. Her gaze went not to Lily, but to the baby. She reached out, not touching, simply observing, and then looked at Lily with something unexpected, warmth. "Thank you," Evelyn said softly, her voice carrying the elegance of old wealth. "For giving my family an heir." The words chilled Lily more than any insult could have. She wasn't a woman in Evelyn's eyes. She was a vessel, a mother of legacy. Inside, the house was breathtaking. Marble floors, chandeliers dripping with crystals, portraits of ancestors in gilded frames. It smelled of roses and expensive cigars. Yet beneath the opulence was something suffocating. The silence was too heavy, the shadows too deep. Aaron led her up the sweeping staircase, past men in tailored suits who inclined their heads as he passed. Lily clutched her baby tighter, her every step echoing like the sound of chains. Her new room overlooked the desert. Sunlight spilled across silk sheets and velvet curtains, but the windows were fitted with iron locks. Outside, armed men patrolled the grounds. She realized quickly, this was no sanctuary. It was a gilded cage. The staff treated her with polite distance. Maids moved like ghosts, avoiding her eyes. One of them, a young woman named Rosa, whispered when no one was listening. "Be careful. Not everything here is as it seems." Lily barely had time to ask before Rosa disappeared down the corridor, leaving only the echo of warning. Days blended into one another. She fed her son, memorized every expression on his tiny face, and watched the desert sky change colors through barred windows. Aaron visited often, sometimes with tenderness, sometimes with cold authority. He held the child gently, but when his eyes turned to Lily, there was something unreadable in them, longing, possession, guilt. One evening, Aaron entered her room carrying a crystal glass of whiskey. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his tie loosened. He looked less like the heir of a crime clan and more like the man she had once loved, but the illusion never lasted. "Lily," he said, his voice low. "I brought you back because you belong with me. With us." Her chest tightened. "You mean because I carry your heir?" Aaron's jaw clenched. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then, quietly, "Because you carry a piece of me." The words should have softened her. Instead, they chained her tighter. That night, as the baby slept in his cradle, Lily sat by the window and traced the locked frame with her fingers. The desert stretched endless and vast, freedom so close, yet unreachable. And she knew with a certainty that made her blood run cold. Aaron hadn't saved her. He had claimed her. The days inside the Miller estate stretched into weeks, each one bleeding into the next like brushstrokes of the same color. Lily moved through the house like a ghost in her own skin, feeding her son, listening to his soft breaths, watching him grow beneath the weight of gilded chandeliers and velvet drapes. Outside, the desert stretched wide and empty, but every path that led away from the house was watched, locked, guarded. She had learned quickly that even silence had ears here. Conversations stopped when she entered a room. Maids smiled politely but never lingered. Security men never spoke at all, only nodded with cold deference. Aaron was different. He appeared at unexpected hours, sometimes late at night, his presence filling her rooms like smoke. At times he came with a tenderness that disarmed her, bringing blankets when the baby stirred, touching his son's tiny hand with reverence. Other times, he came like a storm, demanding, controlled, his dark eyes fixed on her as though every move she made was an act of betrayal. Then came the evening that shattered whatever fragile routine she had built. The door opened without a knock. Rosa, the maid who had once whispered warnings, entered carrying a long white garment bag. She laid it carefully across Lily's bed, eyes downcast, her silence heavier than words. "What is this?" Lily asked, her voice sharp in the stillness. Before Rosa could answer, Aaron appeared in the doorway. He didn't smile. He didn't have to. His gaze alone delivered the weight of his intention. "Open it," he said simply. With trembling fingers, Lily pulled the zipper down. The fabric spilled out, ivory silk, delicate lace, shimmering under the lamplight. A wedding dress. Her breath caught, fury rising like fire in her chest. "No," she whispered, stepping back as though the gown itself might burn her. Aaron stepped inside, his presence crowding the room. "The ceremony will be in 2 weeks. Quiet, private. My mother will arrange the details." Lily's hand tightened around the crib where her son slept, as though anchoring herself. "You can't just decide that. You can't keep making choices for me as if I'm property." Her voice cracked, but the anger within it was sharp and real. For the first time, Aaron flinched. Just barely, a flicker in his eyes, a shadow across his face. Then he spoke, his voice low but firm. "Do you think you survived alone out there, Lily? Do you think Colorado kept you safe?" Her heart stuttered. She shook her head, refusing to believe it. "No. You weren't there." "I was always there," he said, his tone breaking through the walls she tried to build. "Every bill you thought was paid by chance? Every bag of groceries left at your door? The refrigerator, the vitamins, the safety you clung to? All of it was me." The words landed like blows. Memories she had tried to bury resurfaced, the groceries, the electric bill stamped paid, the silent miracles she had dared to trust. Each of them now felt poisoned. "You watched me," she whispered, horror seeping into her voice. "Every moment. Every breath. You never let me go." Aaron's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, the storm in his eyes almost human, almost desperate. "You call it control. I call it protection. You and our son would be dead if I hadn't intervened. Do you understand, Lily? The world I live in doesn't forgive weakness. You and the baby are my weakness, and I will do anything to keep you alive." Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She stared at him, at the man who had once been her lover, who now stood before her as both captor and savior. "You didn't protect me, Aaron. You trapped me. You've destroyed my life and called it love." For a long moment, silence pressed between them, so heavy it seemed the walls themselves held their breath. Aaron's face shifted, anger and longing warring within him, a man torn between empire and heart. Finally, he reached for the dress, lifting it gently, almost reverently. He laid it back in its bag, zipped it shut, and set it on the chair. His voice, when it came, was softer than she expected. "You can hate me all you want, Lily. But one day, you'll see, everything I've done was to keep you here. Alive. With me. With him." His hand brushed the crib, lingering for just a second before he turned and walked out, leaving the air heavy with his confession. Lily sank into the chair, her body trembling, her son's steady breathing the only sound in the suffocating silence. She had thought she'd escaped once. She had thought she'd found freedom in the mountains. But now she understood, she had never been free. Not then. Not now. And the gilded cage was closing tighter with every passing day. The plan came quietly, whispered through the walls of the estate. Jason, the head of security, had watched her carefully for weeks, not with the suspicion of Aaron's other men, but with something closer to pity. One evening, as he adjusted the cameras in the hall outside her room, he leaned close enough for her to hear. "There's a tunnel beneath the old stables. No cameras. No guards. Midnight. Her heart thundered for hours afterward. Freedom, the word itself felt dangerous. She spent the night preparing silently, packing only the essentials: diapers, bottles, a small stash of cash she had hidden, a blanket for the baby. Each movement was deliberate, trembling with the fear that Aaron might appear and read her thoughts. At midnight, she crept through the silent corridors, her son pressed against her chest. The storm outside had passed, leaving the desert eerily still, the air heavy with waiting. She slipped into the stables, the smell of hay and dust filling her lungs as she moved toward the wooden trapdoor Jason had described. But before she could lift it, a voice broke the silence. "You were really going to leave?" Aaron stood in the shadows of the barn, his figure half lit by the pale moonlight through the slats. He didn't look angry. He didn't shout. Instead, his face carried something she hadn't seen before: exhaustion. Honesty. Lily's arms tightened around her son. "I can't live like this, Aaron." Locked away. Controlled. It isn't freedom. He stepped closer, his voice low, almost raw. "I don't want to cage you. I want you with me. Not in the blood, not in the guns, in the part of my world that's clean. The hotels. The farms. The businesses no one dares to touch." She shook her head, tears burning her eyes. "And what if I refuse?" Aaron's gaze lingered on the child in her arms, then lifted back to her. "Then you walk out that tunnel, and I'll never stop you. But know this, without me, without my protection, you and our son will always be hunted." Silence stretched. Lily's breath caught as the weight of his words sank in. Finally, she spoke, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "If I stay, it will be on my terms. My money. My decisions. No forced vows. No wedding dress waiting on my bed." Aaron's jaw tightened, but then, slowly, he nodded. "Agreed." She looked down at her sleeping son, his tiny chest rising and falling against her. For him, she would endure. For him, she would negotiate with the devil. But as the wind howled outside the barn, one truth echoed louder than all the rest: no matter the wealth, no matter the promises, she was still a prisoner in a gilded cage.